All right, man. There's something we got to talk about here because this is really getting out of hand here. We've talked about this on another occasion. David Pakman has some sort of affinity for Joe Biden for no apparent reason. I did a video that I titled something like David Pakman gets a little crazy and says Biden would be a better debater than Bernie in the debate or whatever. And it's very clear that A, he's got some fondness for Biden for some reason, and B, he also is trying to conceal it so that his progressive audience doesn't get pissed. So because he kind of has to combat that. Like he clearly has very strong support for Biden for whatever freaking reason. I don't know what it is, but I look at my sub feed and here's what comes up. It's a video from David. This is the type showing you on the screen how it looks. It says Biden raises most money of any candidate in first 24 hours. And the thumbnail says Biden enters the race with a bang. Now, this is a really stupid way of framing this entire thing because we already know that Joe Biden, the very first meeting he had, the very first fundraiser that Biden had was with, I believe it was the Comcast CEO or something like that. So you have to, like, what do we need alternative media for if you're going to put out stuff like this? Because what you're doing is you're feeding into the garbage nonsense of the mainstream media when you do crap like this. Really, Biden enters the race with a bang? What bang? There was no bang. It was a bunch of corporate funded donors. He had like less than half, a lot less than half of Bernie's donor count. He didn't enter with a bang, and titling your video this way is extremely deceptive and stupid, hands down stupid. You know, any progressive, like actual progressive, would describe it correctly in the title instead of doing it like this, because the way this comes off as is some MSM type of video, man. It's depressing to see because clearly he has some affinity for Joe Biden. I don't know why it is. So we're going to look at this video. He says some very interesting things, to say the least, and we're going to go through this here.
Okay, I don't yet have new polling about how Joe Biden's formal announcement that he's running for president has impacted his standing in the 2020 Democratic primary. But we do have fundraising numbers from Biden's first 24 hours, and he's raising a lot of money. Now, why is he raising a lot of money is what matters, and we'll get to that in a second. But in his first 24 hours after his presidential announcement, Joe Biden raised more money than any other 2020 Democratic candidate in their first 24 hours. Now, there are some caveats, and we're going to discuss them. I told you on...
Notice how, like, he keeps saying it and then says the caveats over and over again. So that's what I mean by, like, he clearly has an affinity for Biden, but he's trying to conceal it for obvious reasons.
Thursday, when we talked about Joe's announcement, that politics aside, this is the biggest shakeup to the race since Bernie Sanders announced that he was getting in. And one of the impacts of Joe Biden's announcement is that a lot of the other centrist Democrats are just instantly dead in the water, right? If you're Hip Hickenlooper, if you are Cory Booker or Amy Klobuchar or Julian Castro or Kirsten Gillibrand, and you were sort of hoping to be the safe center-left moderate Democratic vote,
Center left. I'm not even really sure if that's a good way to describe it, but is he wrong about that? No, not necessarily. I might agree with him on that. He might be right that a lot of those corporate Democrats are kind of like, you know, as he put it, dead in the water. But are they center left? Not really.
Joe Biden entering absolutely crushes and destroys you. But there's still the question of, okay, is Joe Biden going to be able to raise money? And so far the answer is...
Did anyone have that question? Why would anyone have that question? I feel like that framing is really ridiculous too, because who questioned that? Joe Biden obviously was going to raise money in the way that he's raising money right now. Big, massive bundlers and big fundraisers with massively rich CEOs like he's doing. Who had that question?
Yes, Joe Biden raised $6.3 million in his first 24 hours after announcing. This came from 96,000 people with an average donation of $65. For comparison, Beto raised $6.1 million in his first 24 hours.
Come on, David. This is just getting to bad journalism because, and again, if you're going to upload content like this, what is the need for alternative media? If I want this kind of content, I'll just watch CNN. And I don't want to watch CNN for obvious reasons. When you just straight up, like, you don't, and I don't know if he knows this or not, but it turned out that what Beto O'Rourke did is he added in $300,000 of general election funds, which are only guaranteed if he reaches the general election. Now, Bernie Sanders didn't include any of that money. None of the other counts included that money. Only Beto O'Rourke. So why did it take so long for Beto to finally come out and tell us how many donors he had and how much money he made? It's because he was scheming and trying to figure out how to, manipulate the headlines. And then all the mainstream media headlines run with Beto O'Rourke raises 6.1 million in 24 hours, breaking Bernie Sanders' 5.9 million. It was very, and in this case too, it's very, convenient that Biden's 6.3 ousts both Bernie Sanders and Beto by, a little bit, very convenient and coincidental, you know what I mean? And it's just really, like, come on, David, you have to add that. David, please, you have to add that. Come on, man. That is such important, crucial information that Beto O'Rourke lied to put himself over Bernie Sanders to manipulate the mainstream media headlines. He also did that with unique donors, by the way. Unique donations, because unique donations are different from unique donors. And then CNN started running with, oh, look, they started conflating the number of Beto's unique donations with unique donors.
And Bernie raised 5.9 million in his first 24 hours. Now, what is very different about Joe Biden than Bernie Sanders, less different than Beto O'Rourke, but very different from Bernie, is that Joe Biden is raising money from very different people than Bernie Sanders. For example, Thursday night, Joe Biden went to a fundraiser hosted by Comcast's executive vice president. He has a big Google fundraiser coming up in May with Google's CEO. Bernie, on the other hand, had way more individual donors, about 225,000 in those first 24 hours. So this is exactly as predicted. Biden is a centrist Democrat. He's more in line with Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders is not. So it's not a criticism, although I lean more in the Bernie direction than the Biden direction. But Democrats need to understand that we're kind of in a...
Hold on, wait, I have to rewatch that.
Bernie Sanders is not. So it's not a hours. So this is exactly as predicted. Biden is a centrist Democrat. He's more in line with Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders is not. So it's not a criticism, although I lean more in the Bernie direction than the Biden direction.
Why is that not a criticism? I don't understand.
But Democrats need to understand that we're kind of in a tough place here because we need to talk about this. I'm going to talk about how Democratic candidates are funded. I did a story about Beto O'Rourke removing that no lobbyists pledge from his website. Here I am telling you how Joe Biden is funded. But the right is very clever, and the right is already using these differences to play up internal divisions within the Democratic Party. Fox News immediately wrote an article about how Elizabeth Warren is slamming Biden for his swanky private fundraiser. So let's vote our policy. Let's start thinning the field, which is going to start happening soon. But let's do it in a way that doesn't hurt us in November, because otherwise it's another 4 years of Trump. And we learned since 2016 that Trump and Hillary were not the same. They would not have governed the same way. The Supreme Court is a great example. So we need to make sure we're striking a reasonable balance between, I'm going to tell you who's funding Bernie, who's funding Kamala, who's funding Joe Biden and Beto and everybody else. But we need to do it in a way that is not sort of piggybacking on and allowing the right to further internal strife within the Democratic primary, because the end result of that is another 4 years of Donald Trump, and we just can't afford it in the literal sense, in the proverbial sense, and we've got to be really careful about it. But so far, Joe Biden raising a lot of money from fewer donors, larger average donation, and some large corporate fundraisers as well, which is not a surprise. We knew that if Joe Biden announced that's who he was going to be raising a lot of money from, and he is, it doesn't change anything. We just need to decide what it is that we want.
Okay, so this part really confuses me because he really does end up sounding here like a corporate Democrat type of person here. Because when you're talking about, like, so what you just saw him talking about Biden, right? And him saying, oh, I think at the end he just straight up says that doesn't change anything. Like, nah, it's pretty important. Just because we already knew that Biden was going to take corporate donations and big dollars and big money fundraisers, that doesn't, like, in any way, he's acting as if, like, us like already knowing that Biden was going to be taking that those big dollars, that somehow it is not an indictment on Biden's candidacy for president, when it is. Like, I'm not supporting a guy who is who is taking that kind of money. And you're clearly not hammering away nearly as hard as you should be at all. In fact, if you even are in this segment, you're very like sort of tiptoeing around everything, and you're making sure to be careful and not really. And it's all, I guess, because he's trying to do this like strategy for 2020, where he thinks that, if we accurately criticize Joe Biden too much, then we're gonna get Trump for 4 years. Nah, dude, that's probably not really the case. And honestly, I think the best way of getting another 4 years of Trump is doing what you're doing and not really fighting against Joe Biden and that sort of camp of people, if you will. Because when you do that kind of stuff, obviously, I don't know how a Joe Biden-Donald Trump election would pan out. I'm not even sure how Joe Biden will do in the primary itself, because remember, Joe Biden's numbers are entirely held up by all of its nostalgia from President Barack Obama. Because when you think Joe Biden, you think Obama. Now, the thing about Joe Biden is, I don't even know why he's running as a Democrat. Why is he a Democrat? And why would I vote for him in any situation whatsoever? Because what is there to like about Joe Biden? He's worse than Hillary Clinton, in my opinion. I think he's worse than Hillary Clinton. Because I don't even know some of the things. I don't know what he supports because he doesn't say it. But he's basically the diametric opposite of Bernie Sanders at this point. He came out saying, I'm not Bernie Sanders, and saying that I love billionaires. I love them to death. And, he's got such archaic views on so many things. Like, he doesn't want to legalize pot. He authored that 1994 crime bill that basically resulted in mass incarceration under the Bill Clinton administration. He authored that one. Actually, I'm not sure. I think that was under the Clinton administration, although I believe that talks about that had started under the H.W. Bush administration, because I had seen a clip of Joe Biden saying that basically the president's words didn't go far enough, and he actually wanted to do more, which is crazy. He also is in favor of banning flag burning. And I didn't know this actually, but back in '95, when Bill Clinton was president, the Senate was only 3 votes shy from passing the 28th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, which would make desecration of the flag illegal. That was after the Supreme Court decided in Johnson v. Texas that it is. I think it was a 5-4 decision where even Antonin Scalia was on the side of no, it's free speech. That's crazy. He actually was a big proponent of that, and he was part of writing that constitutional amendment that almost got passed. The Anita Hill hearings, let's talk about. He was very irresponsible in that. He allowed for inflammatory statements to be made. Anita Hill also says that he didn't allow for multiple witnesses of hers that would have supported her statements to actually show up. And Joe Biden is just, there's so many things about him. So he doesn't support Medicare for all. They're apparently going to, in a little battle now, he and Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders, of course, supports Medicare for all. Joe Biden says he supports a public option, which I don't even believe. I don't think that Joe Biden supports the public option. I think that President Joe Biden won't care about the public option. And, Joe Biden is a Republican. He's not a Democrat. Why is he running as a Democrat? What position makes him a Democrat? What makes him left-wing? What is in any way better about Joe Biden than is Donald Trump? I honestly don't know at this point, because all of the different positions that I just told you about are things that, Donald Trump holds. The record of Joe Biden is possibly the worst that I've ever seen. It's between him and Kamala because, Kamala's a prosecutor, so it's a lot different there. But, what incentive do I have to vote for Joe Biden? Like, stop this nonsense, bro. Doug, we're almost in May 2019. We're only in May 2019 of the primary, okay? And you're already doing like this kind of like tiptoe stepping a little bit around, criticizing Joe Biden. You're doing like little weak kind of attacks on him instead of actually being real about it and really going hammering on him. And I can't stand it, dude. Honestly, I can't stand it, because when you see stuff like this, what is the need for alternative media? If I can just turn on MSNBC and watch the same thing, Joe Biden, he comes in and makes a bang. He raises the most in 24 hours. Yeah, man, and let's not attack each other too much because we need to look out for 2020, bro. Like, why would any progressive vote for Joe Biden, dude? This is not the right strategy, and it's downright embarrassing. Now, again, as I explained at the beginning of the video, this is not the first time David has expressed and indicated to us his random affinity for Joe Biden, where he said that he would be better in a debate against Trump than Bernie Sanders. He also said that he liked Bernie Sanders personally as a person, that's insane because he's actually a really creepy guy, as you guys are all aware of. But he just sucks. I mean, there's nothing good about him. And so this kind of stuff where you're talking about, that's not a criticism of him. Why is it not a criticism of him? Just because we knew previously that he was a corporate sellout, that makes it like as if that negates the fact that he actually is a corporate sellout? Of course it doesn't. Of course not. That's horrible. And you should be, the title of this video should be Joe Biden raises a bunch of money from corporate donors. And the thumbnail shouldn't be Joe Biden comes in with a bang. Like, what is this, man? And David, if you really love Joe Biden so much, here's what I want you to do, man. Just come out and say it. Don't do some crypto stuff where you're on the DL about it and you're kind of tiptoeing around it and trying not to piss off your progressive audience. Just tell us, man. Be honest. Tell us you love Joe Biden because, I mean, that's what's clear here, man. I don't know what else to tell you. Man. But this is very, very disappointing. And what you can expect to see in the future from David, unfortunately, I really wish it wasn't like this. More pro-Joe Biden, weak, stale, nonsense videos like this where it's titled, Biden raises most money of any candidate in the first 24 hours. Biden comes in, drops a bang. That's not a criticism. We already knew he was going to get corporate donations. So it's not a criticism, even though I'm a Bernie Sanders fan. It's not a criticism. And we need to really do away so that the right wing isn't going to take advantage of us correctly calling out corporatists and then losing the election. Joe Biden is worse than Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden is more right wing than Hillary Clinton is. Joe Biden has a worse record than Hillary Clinton does. How on God's green earth can you not be just going on and just demolishing this guy? This video should have been just an absolute tirade and an expose of this entire record and all of his positions that he holds. Instead, you got a video where he's, just spewing nonsense like this, man. Let me know your thoughts on this down below.